All right, so in our time together, I want to center us in some shared assumptions that we probably came to the table with. I'm going to challenge you to rethink some of your previous notions when it comes to asking people for money, guiding people to make giving decisions. I'm going to show you why this is an incredibly timely topic for you to be thinking about. And then finally, I will be equipping and encouraging you as we leave this room together. So we're going to unlearn some things together. Church giving is unique, right? You don't pay an admission fee to go to church. You have no other revenue stream for church, right? Other than offerings. That is the only way that people support your mission and your ministry. But that comes with a number of, I think, I'm not going to call them lies, but a certain number of misconceptions when it comes to church giving. So when it comes to giving, like what are some things that you believe about why people give at church? First one's biblical, right? Tithing, right? Why else are people giving to you? Yeah. Because you asked them to? I love it. Maintain. I like that. I'm sorry? It's a party. It's a good deed. Because that's what you're supposed to do. Right? Yeah. It's called to give. Oh, transactional. Yeah. Give to receive. So I always think that, wow, this mic is hot. So it's really hot. Okay, I think that people give for a variety of different reasons. I think that church giving is definitely unique. It comes with a different level of responsibility. It also comes with, I believe, as I was preparing for our time together, some assumptions that you as church leaders have about your members, that I really want you guys to kind of rethink this. So I've worked with quite a few, primarily schools that are attached to churches, so that are ministries of a church. And when it comes to how we report to donors, how we plan to donors, how we talk to people about making giving decisions, some of that thinking is a little antiquated. It is a little hard to relate to, especially to the people in your pews right now. And you might be feeling that it's really, really hard. So we're gonna work together, and we're gonna try to unlearn some of these assumptions together. So why do you seek to exist? This isn't a trick question. Share the good news of Jesus Christ. We exist to grow the kingdom. We exist to bring people closer to God. We exist to be a role model in our communities, right? Why else do we exist? Ooh, to serve. Be a model. So we don't exist to raise money or ask people to give or to build new buildings or to create new programming, right? We have all of these other mission-focused, mission-minded reasons that we exist. That is why it's often hard for people like us that are called to serve, that are called to be in the service sector, that are called into ministry, to ask people for money. It's uncomfortable. You don't want to do it. Other than public speaking, it is one of the greatest fears that people have. So as someone who really just likes to take all fears head on, I made a career of asking people for money and publicly speaking. So I guess there's not a lot that I'm afraid of other than spiders. But that's not what most of us, though. We don't like it. It feels awkward. It's not comfortable. It doesn't feel good. So what I want to do in our time together is exactly what the title of the session said. I want to teach us how to walk together so that we can move from guilting people to give to guiding people to make giving decisions. The first thing that I want to do is that I want us to relearn what we think about giving and donations and offerings and all of that. I want us to think about it in the framework of developing real relationships with people, helping them see what God is doing, and then challenging them to have the impact only they can have. So that is our working definition of development, of advancement. We don't use the fundraising word. We don't like that word because that word feels transactional. Everything we do, what we try to do is we try to grow from transactional giving to transformational giving in ministry-centered organizations only. Okay, that's who we work with, that's who we serve. So in order to do that, we have to go from asking people for money, guilting people to give up a Starbucks, do this, 10%, tithe, do it because you need to, do it because something good's gonna happen to you, to what is this gonna allow us to accomplish? How is your giving gonna impact the kingdom? What is your giving gonna allow us to do? How are we gonna grow? So it's real relationships with people, helping them see what God is doing and then challenging them to have an impact only they can have. Discipline means it's not easy, it's hard, but it's not complicated. It's actually very, very simple. So I'm gonna say that one more time. Development and growing a generous giving culture, it's very easy, it's very simple, it's not complicated, but it's gosh darn hard. All right, another not trick question. Do you guys have a resource problem? No. Ooh, we don't have a resource problem because we serve an infinite God, right? We serve an infinite God. Our God can do anything. We absolutely, positively do not have a resource problem. These are God's gifts. We're just trying to steward people into making giving decisions and helping them see that they can have an impact only they can have. Wow, that was easy. You guys are so good. So then what do we have if we don't have everything that we need at our church? We have people problems, not the people you're here sitting next to, not the people that are in your pews every week. It's the people, you, us. Are we fostering the real relationships that we need to foster? Are we spending our time where it can have the greatest amount of impact? Are we really taking on the responsibility that we need to take on to achieve the dreams that we want to achieve? How much ownership do you feel for these projects that you want to move forward, for the money that you're trying to raise, for the church doors that you're trying to keep open, right? We don't have a resource problem, we have a people problem. And how do we solve that? We grow real relationships with real people and show them how they can have an impact only they can have. So I want us to, again, move from the framework of guilting people to give to guiding people to make giving decisions. The way we do that is that we help them see that their giving is the fuel that drives us forward. What is the plan? What are we going to do with the money? What is the giving going to allow us to accomplish? I have sat through, I don't know, hundreds. When I was writing this, I was like, has it been 1,000 stewardship Sundays? It might be. I've sat through so many of those. I have read so many bulletins. I have seen how we talk to givers. And it really seemed normal for me. I grew up in the church. My dad's a pastor. My uncle's a pastor. My grandpa was a pastor. This is very normal to me. We give 10%. It's our responsibility. We give our last mite. All of that is fully ingrained in me. But when I started talking to people about giving, I understood that they have more of a leadership role in it. We have to bring our givers alongside of us. We have to bring our church members alongside of us and show them how their giving can really fuel the ministry, how it's not just paying the bills, how it's not just for operations, how it's not for the deficit, right? People want to give to things that are exciting. So that's what I'm going to equip you guys with. I'm going to help kind of unlock some of that leadership language and equip you in a way that will grow giving and show your community that giving is the fuel that guides us forward. I don't have a clock.
What time is it? Thank you.
All right. So this is an interesting statistic that we always show. In 2023, $557 billion was donated into the nonprofit sector in the United States. This is not a worldwide statistic. This is a United States statistic. So in 2023, $557 billion was given into the nonprofit sector. Like I said, I only work with ministries. I only work with nonprofits that have a Christian component. One of the biggest lies that we hear is that, oh, well, corporations won't give to us. Foundations won't give to us. Well, guess who's doing the bulk of that giving? Can you guys see that? Can everyone see this? Because when I was in the back, I couldn't see the PowerPoints. Good? Okay, good. So 67% of the $557 billion, and for those of you that struggle with math like I do, that's $374 billion was given by individuals, people giving to other people. Okay, so the first thing that I want you guys to really understand is you are front and center. You're in front of these people every single week. You have relationships that nobody else has. You have a level of trust. People don't give to their level of capacity, they give to their level of trust. How do you build trust? You build trust by having real conversations with real people, right? So I'm very repetitive, but I'm trying to really hit the point home. I will end up beating this dead horse by the end of this presentation. But again, people don't give to their level of capacity, they give to their level of trust. And you have to build trust. So individuals, members in your church, they trust you. They trust you with their faith. They trust you with their kids. They trust you with their heavenly home, with the eternal life, okay? How are we gonna grow that relationship into transforming into giving? How are we gonna grow that? The other thing that I wanna show you when it comes to these statistics, and I am just not a numbers person, I'm not an economics person, but these are really important for us, is that 24% of the $557 billion was given to religion. You see that, $145 billion. Who thinks $145 billion would be helpful at their church? Who wants a piece of that? Yeah, you guys are all getting a piece of that, but how do we grow that? So I really want to show you and encourage you that you are getting the bulk of the giving in the United States. Now, the unfortunate thing about this little slide is 2 years ago, it looked a little bit different, and it looked a little bit different 5 years ago. Okay, so the church giving is actually decreasing, and I'm gonna have some more numbers behind to show you a little bit more about that.
I have trouble accepting that people trust that capacity. I feel possible that people are struggling to pay for groceries for clothes. I need the capacity become.
Yeah, it's hard for people to give. It's hard for them to steward, yeah.
And I think what we need to understand, this is what they do in politics. They ask you just, and politicians say, just give me $5, because $5 over thousands of people is a lot of money. And I think maybe our message has to be, I understand that it's tough for you to give right now because rent and food is so expensive, but just give a small amount because it all adds up. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Absolutely. You want to come up here and do the rest of these slides? Because I think you're already speaking to what I'm going to speak to. This next slide is going to show you the legitimacy of what you're feeling is real. Okay? So the red line is the number of donors. So that's that capacity issue. It's harder for more and more people to give. The green line is the average donation size. So as the average donation size increases, well, it doesn't have to actually work that way. It could work in tandem, but this is how it is working. This is the reality that we live in. So donation size is going up, the number of donors is going down. It doesn't just feel harder, it is harder. And so the number that you gave, so the $100, $10 donors, so the yellow line at the top are donations that are smaller than $500. The orange line in the middle are donors that are ranging between 500 and 5,000 donors, and $5,000, I'm sorry. And the large donors are $5,000 and above. So you see what's happening here. Back in 1990, 60% of the giving was made up by $500 and less dollars, given per gift. So what you're saying is absolutely 100% true. It is harder. During recessions, we see this too. The giving amount stays pretty stable, but it's who's giving is what's changing. And I'm showing you that so you can have an awareness of it. It's also harder because look at how many more nonprofits there are. So in 1990, there were 60 million donors giving to 500,000 nonprofits. In 2023, $40 million giving to 1.8 million nonprofits. Churches are included in this statistic. So again, it doesn't just feel harder, it really is harder. I'm hot too, so it's not just me. All right. So the other thing that I think, I wasn't going to include this slide in this presentation, but I chose to, because I wanted to show you that there is a correlation between the amount of money that's spent in philanthropy versus the amount of money that's given. And that might just be something that you all as church leaders have to just get a little bit better at. It might not necessarily be dollar-wise, like paying a position, but it might be you in your leadership role budgeting a little bit more of your time into this work and seeing it as, it is there's a direct correlation and there's an investment of your time and you growing giving through that. We look at it in this simple equation is that the total giving minus total expenses equal the margin. So there is a relational aspect to the amount of time that goes in to driving giving decisions, to actually giving decisions being made. All right, just threw a lot at you, so I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of a brain break. This is Jake Boone. Has anyone seen this video before? No? Okay, Jake Boone's from Tennessee. I don't have kids, but this is what I imagine they sound like when they're trying to give you directions.
Okay, I went down there last week, and everything is teared down. We need to put a new door in it.
That Bear Creek?
Bear Creek, yeah.
You know how to get there?
Well, yeah, you turn on the left and go right straight to Bear Creek, and you get on a 6 Mile road, and then you turn back on a 1 mile. No, Bear Creek Road, you turn on 6 Mile, and go back on where you're at. And then you go on 1 mile, and you go on 1 mile, and then you go on this mile to 1 mile. And you jump back on another mile, and then you go back on this mile, and you go back on that mile. Then you go Bear Creek Mile, you go on the bridge mile, and you turn on another bridge, go another Bear Creek. There's turn on the west, and then there's a house, and a bridge is on where the house is.
Okay, so he can keep going on and on and on. Yeah, you guys know, right? This could go on forever. Now, who knows where he's going? Does anyone know where he's going? He's going to Bear Creek. I think that's kind of like loosely clear. He's going to Bear Creek. Now, do you know how to get there? No. Do you think you could get there? No. Does he know how to get there? I think he thinks he knows how to get there. Okay? So that's the challenge that that's my first challenge to you all. Okay, as leaders, it's up to you to not sound like Jake Boone. So yeah, donors ask very simple questions. How much do you need? What do you want? What is that giving gonna do? What's $100,000 gonna do? And then we have so many things we wanna say. So the first thing that comes to grow a generous giving culture is really good planning. Okay, you need to have a plan. And every time someone asks you a relatively simple question and you start sounding like Jake Boone, I want you to remember this talk. Like, okay, I can't sound like Jake Boone. This is a really simple question that I should have a simple answer to. If you don't, then you need to go back to church council. You need to go back into your leadership conversations. You need to say, so why are we doing this? What is this going to allow us to accomplish? When I earlier I said, right, I've read definitely more than 1,000 bulletins, that I can say. We always use that word budget, operations. Okay, I want you guys, that's another thing I want us to unlearn. I don't want us to say that word anymore. I want us to say the word plan. This is what we hope to see. Okay, because giving and givers and money given, you want that to kind of be in the car, you want that to be the foot on the gas, right? Because giving is the fuel. But you want leaders, you want your congregation, you want your church council. You guys need to have your hands on the wheel. You need to know what the plan is, and it happens as fast as people think, pray, and make giving decisions. So you guys say budget, I say plan. Now I want us all to start saying plan instead of budget, because that's what's going to grow giving from transactional to transformational, is so that you don't sound like Jake, so that someone says, what are you going to do with this money? The more clear that you can say what you're going to do with it and what it's going to allow you to accomplish, the easier it's going to be for the giver to come alongside you and say, wow, okay, I see you. I see how that can help. Let me see what I can do. Let me talk to my husband. Let me see how we can make this happen. So I'm seeing some nods. Have you guys ever had that moment with a donor where you've been able to quickly answer their question and you've seen a gift more than what you expected? Or close to what you would like to see?
Yeah, what I was asking. Yeah, so yeah, just putting a vision out there that connected with something that they had said they wanted to do. So I think it's also starts with listening to what you think is out there already, maybe.
Yeah, building on that trust, right? Because you've listened. Listen, I like steps. I like moving around. I can't be a caged animal.
My name is Edward. We had a direct experience of this at our church. We needed to put in a streaming service right after the COVID, streaming service. So we needed cameras and all. So somebody told us to get a plan first. What do you need? So we came up with a plan. And then immediately we announced it at church. A retiree just stood up and said, how much do you need? And we were able to put out an exact figure, and we got the check in 3 days.
Yeah.
It's easy for donors to see how they can be part of your ministry and mission if you have a specific plan. Okay, so that's why for a lot of you, you're like, well, if we're in a capital campaign, it's easier to raise money. But what I'm trying to do is trying to teach you all to have capital campaign disciplines during any sort of season. And what do you have? You have a very specific plan. This would be our plan framework that we would encourage you to have as talking points. Church council knows them. Anyone in leadership knows them. Your mission and your vision, why you do what you do. What is your vision for your church? How do you want to bring people to Christ? What does a life saved look like? How do you do that work? That's the key questions. And then how can those giving-driven steps, how can your donors, your congregation members come alongside you and see those steps to completion? We would say that step one has already been done. So often we think in kind of annual timelines or campaign timelines. We really want you to start being able to paint a broader picture of how the Lord has been so good to your church in the past. Okay? So step one is done. You can pick whatever time frame that is. What has giving and what has that giving been, and what has it allowed you to accomplish? Step two would be where you currently are, and that's pretty clear. You know in the next 2 to 5 years, you hope to see this happen. This dollar amount would allow us to, whatever, have a streaming service, okay? The more specific you are in step two, the more people are gonna be able to mobilize because they understand what the plan is. Step 3 and step 4, a little less clear, okay? But what I have seen happen has been incredible because, again, donors have the foot on the gas. Keep those timelines loose and allow the donors to be the heroes in the story. So I had a school I was working with, and they had very, immediate goals. They knew exactly what they needed to see for the annual year, scholarships, budget, we say plan, but their budget, what it was. So we started our work together, and I said, let's develop what we would call a development plan, a development message. So it consisted of these parts. And he said, well, I don't know what comes after step 3. And I was like, okay, if God gave you everything that you wanted, if God just dropped a $10 million check in your lap tomorrow, what would you do with that money? So that's the exercise that I want you all to do. If this feels hard, if you guys haven't done strategic plan as a congregation, think of what would a $10 million check do? How would you spend it, and dream? And then start sharing that dream, because his was a unified campus. He didn't know how. The space that they currently had, there was no way they could bring their lower school onto that space. There was no land in sight. It was like far out, like more than 10 years out. But I said, step forward, it's your dream. He goes, my dream is that we have a unified campus. So he showed this plan to different groups of people. He showed it to one donor, and one donor said, I think I want to know more about step 4. He's like, step 4 is so far away. Like, we don't even know how we could do it. He's like, well, what would you need to see? He said, well, a piece of land big enough, something that could accommodate our students, something either centrally located, or there's also this acreage behind our school. Like, we don't really know who owns it. They never had even looked into it. So he had contacts in the developing space. He was able to make a contact with a realtor. That realtor made a contact with the owner of the property. And then that donor said, whatever price he wants for it, I'm going to give it to you. So that's the beauty of having a plan. That's the beauty of putting your dreams out. So that's how the donor, again, has the foot on the gas, right? And he didn't say, oh, buy the land the next week and build on it tomorrow. He's like, buy the land and build on it whenever you can. And that's the kind of partner that you want to have walking alongside of you. You want your givers and you want your congregation members to be true partners in your ministry and empowering them to have that impact only they can have. He wired them the money like the next day. They still haven't actually bought it. It's been about a month now. They've been in contact with the owner of the property, but they have the money sitting in their bank account earning interest because this donor saw what the plan was, aligned with it, and wanted to be part of it. I also, to piggyback on what you said, that listening piece is key. Like, you have to know what they're interested in. They knew that this person had contacts in the development space, land developer. So they were able to speak to their dream in a really impactful way because they knew that donor really, really well. All right, the other tool that I'm going to give you today, these are the key questions. The other tool that why is that so small? That's so rude. I'm sorry. So the other tool that I want to give you today is what we call the Core 4. That is a very simple way of talking about what your goals are. So the first number of the Core 4 is, what would you like to see by the end of this calendar year? Do you guys all have a line of sight on what that number is? No? Who has a line of sight on what that number is? The amount. What would you like to see given by the end of this calendar year? Okay. Okay. Beginning of June. See, very clear. Giving simple because you've had a clear line of sight. Okay, so then I repeat the question. Who else knows what you want to see by the end of 2024? Okay, that's a homework item. Okay, get clear on that. Because if you don't know what it is, your donors don't know. Okay, you don't go to, I used to use this analogy, and I haven't thought of a better one, but I used to say you don't go to the gun range blindfolded, right? You can't hit a target you can't see. So donors can't hit a target with you that they can't see. They don't know what success looks like. You have to provide that leadership language, okay? You need to create a target that they can see. So that's number 1 of your core 4. The next number is, what is a long-term goal? So that kind of like step 2 or step 3. What is that long-term goal? And what will that allow us to accomplish? How many lives are we going to touch with that goal? So what would we like to see in the next 3 to 5 years? What is our near-term milestone? So if you're in a campaign, it might not be by the end of this year, it might be by the end of June. Sometimes in this season, it is the same because usually things are centered around a calendar year, so the end of December. But what's a near-term milestone? And that's another way that your donors can have the foot on the gas. That you're always setting these near-term milestones, and you guys are inching your ways towards it. Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a place where $100 donors feel like $1 million donors. Now, how do you do that? You create these milestones. So $100, so the first $100 gift to $1 million goal, it doesn't feel like it's making a big difference. But you see, by breaking down that goal, we'd like to see 100,000 given by the end of this calendar year. Now that $100 gift feels like it has an impact. It's still the same $1 million goal. So breaking down your goals into bite-sized pieces allow your donors to say, oh, I can make a difference. Oh, this can make an impact. And then the 4th number of the core 4 goals is, where are you progress to date? So I loved your clarity. We're 50,000 in towards the 100,000. Right? That's what we need to be able to say. That's how we don't sound like Jake Boone. If we can't give those what we would call core 4 numbers, so current giving, what you'd like to see by the end of the year, what you would like to see in the next 3 to 5 years, what your your near-term goal is, 3 to 5 years, have an idea of what your long-term goal is, but then your near-term milestone, and then where you are on progress to date. Like, can you report, this is where we are? So I see it in your bulletin. You guys put it on every single week of where you are, but think of it more of a way of, what does this giving allow us to accomplish beyond the budget? How many lives does this touch? How many people do we want to see in church? What's the mission work that we're going to be able to do with these resources? What? No. All right, so this is just the slide that I put up, prospect planning. This is, again, I do this to other groups. I know it probably sounds a little cold to you all, but there is a who. There are names behind these people that are writing these checks and giving these gifts. And you have to know the who. Okay, you have to be able to see in your line of sight who isn't struggling to pay for groceries right now. Okay, because it's a real struggle. But there are people that are giving, and there are people that are seeing that people are struggling, and that means that I showed you that other chart. Other people are shouldering that. They're like, you know what? We need to do a little bit more because others have to do less. And that's the language, the leadership language that I want you guys to lead out with. Some are going to do more because others have to do less during this season. And that's your job as a leader. You have to use this kind of leadership language to find the right people that can make these giving decisions. What is this? It's so small. It says prospect plan is simply a list. It's very dramatic. I don't know why it's so small. So it's just a list. And it's not a top-down list. So I probably lost some of you there. You're like, we're pastors, we're church leaders. We don't look at our congregation members as donors. But I want you to reframe that. I want you to think of it as a list of momentum. Who's ready to give? Who loves what you do? Who is super duper excited about the work that you're accomplishing? Who feels like they're already part of the plan? Okay, those are your greens. And you want to start there. Okay? So it's not top down, like who has the most money or who's given the most in the past. It's momentum. Who is already invested with us? Who's already walking alongside of us? Then you have your oranges. Those are maybe the people that come to church, I don't know, once a month, every 6 months. They have some capacity. You know they have money. They always come with like a new bag. I don't know how we decide what their wealth is, but we talk to them, right? We learn more about them. We ask them more questions. We tell them, hey, I want to know more about you. Why do you only come once every 6 months? Well, I have another home. I do this, I do that, right? I want you guys to really take ownership of those of those relationships, because those are yours to steward. And that's how you grow giving. Then you have your reds. Your reds are people who, maybe some people say things like they could write a check, they could pay for the whole thing. God's going to have to move in them in a slightly different way for them to see what their giving is going to accomplish. But I'm telling you, so I used to work at Luhigh, and I'm telling you, I had some reds on my list, and moving them from red to orange to green was probably one of the most satisfying things I ever did in my work. Because these people had tons of capacity. No one had just asked them enough questions, given enough time, shown them a plan that they understood to bring them to make a giving decision. And so I know that you all have reds too in your community. We work with schools and ministries across the country, and we were talking about this as a team because we were all together last week. And there's two that we work with. They're like right in the same neighborhood. And they're like, there's nobody here that has any money. Like, they're always complaining. Meanwhile, we have a ministry that's like literally like within 5 minutes away from them, where they have 3 7-figure donors. That other organization, they're not asking the right questions. And as a coach, we can't say, hey, well, these people are on your list and they're giving $1 million over here. But people are giving, right? 37 billion? I forget. I get the numbers confused. I know the 2022 numbers. But it was 499 billion, so it's easier for me to remember. But regardless, right? 499 billion was given in 2022. People are giving. Okay, they're just not giving to you. Okay, so it's your job to find those people and to guide them to give to you and to make giving decisions towards you. What time is it? 4:30. What do I have? 4:30? Is that my cutoff? Or are we running late still? Does anyone have the schedule? 4:30 is it? Okay. All right. So I'm going to wrap up. But this is what we would call the donor journey. I want you guys to really get a little bit better at this. Okay? Churches, I feel, are notorious for making their congregation members suffer from ADD, which is appreciation deficit disorder. Okay? I go to Taco Bell and I get a receipt and it says thank you on the bottom of it. Okay? Churches give an annual giving report. Thank you for giving. You don't want to break confidences. You don't want to step on people's toes. But people that write significant checks, the other places that they're giving to, people are calling them, they're saying thank you to them. They're reporting on what their giving has allowed them to accomplish. People are inviting them to go to lunch with them. Okay, that's okay. Pastor Paul at Trinity, Long Island City, he invites people to lunch with him every single week from the pulpit. And he puts a lot of responsibility on the congregation to move the church forward and to be part of the mission and the ministry. So I want you guys to just get a little bit better at that. I don't know what that looks like or what you're comfortable with, but Penelope Burke is one of the biggest researchers in the development space. She said that 90% of donors never get a phone call from places they donate to. Have you guys ever got a phone call for a donation? A thank you phone call? A few? I get called to get asked all the time. I rarely get called to hear a thank you. But that's one of the easiest ways you can grow giving, is just saying thank you. So I'd really encourage you to get a little bit better there as churches. It's easy to do. I really encourage you there. Donors, your congregation members, they're going to be happy to hear from you. I just want to say thank you so much for the way that you've been supporting our church this year. Okay? Amen. Amen. Time is a huge resource and often undervalued, because thank you for saying that, in that development plan, often when I start working with schools, they're not accounting for how much the church has given them in order to even have the space. They're not accounting for the amount of time of all the volunteers that they have. If someone's either giving it with their money or their time. So do a better job at really accounting for that. And then you can count it as progress to date. Like, this is how much it costs to run our ministry. And this is what has been given towards it through time or resources. I'm wrapping up, Renato. Okay, reporting. Do a better job at reporting other than just putting it in the bulletin or the annual meeting. Call attention to the report. If someone wasn't at the annual meeting, forward it to them. Say, you weren't there, but I wanted to make sure that you saw this. I wanted to call attention to this. If they were in the room, hey, thanks for coming to the meeting. I wanted to just hear if you have any thoughts or your feedback. That's how you grow generous giving. That's how you move from guilting to guiding, because people see themselves as partners in your ministry and they want to see you be successful. Then the asking piece, I don't even have time to get into that today, obviously. But like I said, I've sat through so many stewardship Sundays and they're frankly painful. They're painful for the people in the pews. They're painful for you. Do a better job of showing and guiding with vision. Like, this is what your giving is going to allow us to accomplish. This is how we're going to save lives. This is how many lives we touched last year. Really do a much better job on the asking piece. And then the follow-up. We have a donor, he says, don't sit on a sandwich. Don't be hungry and sit on a sandwich. If someone has capacity, if someone has indicated that they want to be more involved with you, follow up with them, circle back. I know it's not the primary job description that you all have, but that was when we started at the very beginning, we talked about maybe you're going to have to invest a little bit more of your time if you want to see giving grow. Okay, set some follow-up meetings, have follow-up conversations. That's all. I have more, but I was told my time was up. It's 4:30.
Thank you, Stephanie. And I could speak from experience that Stephanie has guided me to giving to her organization. Now that we're friends, she mostly just guilts me. But so the circle comes full, right? So, but thank you. Now it's just a guilt call. You did it last year, what not this year? Well,
You're not telling the truth.
No, a little bit. A little bit.
Because we have a strong relationship, I can do that over time.
That's right. Thank you, Stephanie. Really appreciate it. And and thank you all for spending your afternoon with us. And I hope you will come again next year and that you will bring your friends. And next year we'll probably be back to our normal during the day process, which allows you to all kind of see more of the sessions throughout the day. But we really want to thank you all for being here, and get home safe.